Next, I'm going to go in and put dabs of that same yellow, but I'm not going to go over and do every single flower because a lot of them are in shadow. I'm going to need to get some darker yellows. And then I'll put in some blue. So I can use the same color that I mixed and just use it in places. During the break, I wanted to add a little bit more color, so I've started with the blue and the shadows of the vase. And what I've tried to do is to work on the edges so that the edges are not sharp edges. So if you were to look at this up close, you would see it's a little bit fuzzy. And that's intentional because, you know, it's round and there's no hard edge. So trying to show you like right here, along here, where I've gone back and forth between the color and the background brush, trying to just make it a little bit fuzzy. And I'll go back over it some more, but I just don't want it to have a sharp, hard edge. Okay, that's a mistake that new artists often make, is to have very hard edges. And then when they look at it, they wonder what's wrong with this picture. That's probably what it is. I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit more of the dark parts of the vase. I'm not thrilled with this color necessarily, but I think I can go back over it to make it more acceptable, or mix up a different color and go over it a little bit. I mean, it's not too bad. It's just, it's perhaps a little bit too turquoise-ish. Or too warm, I guess that's a better way of putting it. And I've also tried to put some of the vase into the glass. And that's going to be the trickiest part of this whole painting, is doing this glass of wine. So when you're doing your initial lay-in, I forgot to mention squinting to see the shadows. When I say your original lay-in, I mean your original sketch or your grisaille, or if you're outside, you're picking out the darks. So it's best to squint and just stare and stare and stare. And some people have even said, I've taken some plein air classes, teachers have even said that you should take if you're nearsighted and you have, whatever it is, if you've got a hard time with distance, take your glasses off, and that will give you a fuzzier appearance of what you're looking at. But that's for outdoor painting, and just a little tidbit of information for you. So I think next I'm going to go ahead and try to capture this green. I'm trying to get the more vivid colors in. This is the green that I want to portray on the little bowl that is holding the fruit. It's not unlike the green in the grapes. It's a neat little vase. It's a pottery vase with a very green glaze on it. So to mix my green, I'm going to start out with a little bit of Viridian. I'm going to do it over where I've got my yellow, and a little bit of white and a bit of yellow, and see how close I can get. So color mixing is the fun part, in my opinion, but it's also tricky. Go a little bit darker. Grab a little ultramarine blue, that's maybe too dark, but a little bit more, a little of this cadmium green, and just a touch of alizarin crimson for the shadow in the little bowl. And I'm using this little reference picture, which is here. I'll hold it up again. So I'm using this for the color. Okay, so I'm still working on this little bowl and thinking about how watercolor and acrylics differ. Well, acrylics can be used a lot like oil. You're using water and you have to keep your canvas or your panel, you have to keep it wet when you're doing acrylics if you want to do wet into wet. But watercolors, you start, as I did watercolors years and years ago, but you started with your light rather than starting with your darks. You started putting down a layer of the lighter colors and you were working up to the darks being the last layer. That's a little bit different, quite a bit different from the way that this is, this type of painting. I'm remixing some of this color for the light part of the vase. And I know I need a little white to dull this down. At this point I'm getting into making some thicker paint. And soon I would probably start using oil to thin it down. Which would be linseed oil. There's one. Because this is pottery, it's a little different than just any bowl. So there's one little streak of kind of a yellow that goes across here, and another one that goes across the bottom. I don't have to paint this whole bowl all at once though. I can come back to it, but it's probably, since I've got this far. And I'm just going to try to blend some of these. Later I'll put in the white that goes across the top of the bowl. Kind of continuing to blend this. I was talking with one of my friends about how art tends to run in families sometimes. And maybe it's just a desire to do it. My family we have a photographer. I've got a nephew who's a very good photographer. And I've got a daughter who's a very good potter and painter. And my sister has done a good bit of painting. Right now she concentrates on cooking, which is good if you happen to be with her. Well, I'm going to take the fan brush and go over this a little bit. And then I'm going to move on. In blending these shadows with the lighter parts of the bowl, I want it to be a little more, blended. And the other brush didn't really allow me to do that very much. So, fan brushes are great.